Okay, so class number 7, we're going to be talking today about influence and power, and much to be said. But before we get into that, let's talk about one very important factor that is going on right now, at least here in Israel, as we are seeing Shkia happening outside of my window here. We are officially leaving the 24th of Elul, as Shkia descends upon us. And we're going into the 25th of Elul. We're leaving actually the yahrzeit of the Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir, who, we honor all the teachings. It's very interesting. I was thinking about this, how he literally is taking us into the 25th of Elul. So what's so special about the 25th of Elul? The 25th of Elul, we begin to count down the 6 days of creation, starting tonight, Sunday night, wherever you are, 25th of Elul, we begin to count down the 6 days of creation. Rosh Hashanah day is actually, some of us did not know, but Rosh Hashanah day is the day that man was created. It wasn't the day that the world was created. Although we say, Hayom Harat Olam, today is the day, Hashem, that you gave birth to the world, but essentially the world is not worth per se anything without mankind. And therefore, when we say Hayom Harat Olam, today is the day that the world was brought into creation, what we're basically declaring is that man, so long as man sojourns and is part of the world scene, there's purpose. And so tonight, we're essentially beginning to count down the 6 days of creation. So first of all, there's a segula, right? A beautiful spiritual custom that today, from like tonight, wherever you are, again, make sure it's after sunset, after Shkia, Sunday night. So those of us here in Israel can do this already after the program. We're going to take five tea candles, and we're going to light all 5 candles. And the reason why we light 5 is because in the description of the creation of the world, then the word or, the word light, is mentioned 5 times. And so essentially, in order to bring about the light of creation, we're going to light 5 candles tonight. And it's very worthwhile for us to open up your book of Bereshis and read the story, the first few verses that lead up to the Rosh Hashanah, including the creation of mankind. Read about as it's depicted and written in the Torah, the process of creation. Read all those verses. I didn't take a look to see when it ends, but you'll be able to read it. You'll understand. Finish off the verse, light the candle, sit down, read those psukim, those verses on the creation of the world, up until the end, so to speak, of Adam and Chava as they're created, and reignite the purpose of the world in you. And it's so interesting that we're today speaking about influence and power, because essentially when we're talking about influence and power, we are the reason why God brought about creation. And so we can easily ignite that within ourselves with today's learning and with this beautiful segula. Like I said, light those 5 candles. Remember that the purpose of the world creation is to create light, is to become beings of light, is to become conduits of light. And God willing, we'll be able to also take the teachings that we're learning right now and be able to bring more light, because yes, our influence and our power is essentially lighting up that light that we have within each and every one of us and beaming that out into creation. And yes, God gives us power. God gives us light, and we can take that power and we can change our destiny, but not just our own destiny. We can change the destiny of the world, of creation, as we know that every person is a microcosm of the entire world. And yes, when I change myself, I have the ability to tap into that transformative power where everything could follow suit. We have the ability in these coming days, the last Shabbat of the year just passed, the last Sunday of the year for us here in Israel has passed, the last Monday tomorrow, the last Tuesday, and so on and so forth. We have the ability in these coming days to transform the past year. You know, when you say the word bittersweet, what you really taste at the end is the sweetness. It doesn't matter per se that everything was bitter up until now. The fact that I always have in my mouth that taste, the last taste, which what that means is that the end can taper off, can seal off for all of us. How we seal the whole year is how we experience the next coming days, how we've experienced since Shabbat and how we experience the next few days. And we could take and use the power that's given to us in every single one of these coming days as such a power of transformation, because we can essentially wipe out the past. The past can be forgotten. And what could be left in its place is sweetness if we know how to utilize each and every single one of these days properly. Now, the gift of Rosh Hashanah, it really is a gift. It's a gift of loving kindness. Hashem gave us the ability to foretell to us, hey guys, get ready, day of judgment. I'm not taking you by surprise. I'm giving you plenty of time to create the atmosphere, to prepare the courtroom, to prepare your defense. I'm giving you all the opportunities. We said this in the last class. Hashem opened up this beautiful ballroom and puts in this ballroom everything that we need to succeed on the day of judgment. But yet, what's very fascinating about this amazing day is that it's called a holiday. Think about the paradox of this day. Hashem already wants us to feel as though it's a holiday. But it's such a paradox. On one hand, Hashem says it's a day of loving kindness. I'm giving you the opportunity. Prepare your case. Get yourself ready. I want you to dress up in white. I want you to anticipate the favorable judgment. I want you to anticipate that you're going to win me over. You're going to win over the loving kindness aspect, so to speak, of spiritual godly energy. You're going to win over and you're going to get me, so to speak, to move from my chair of judgment to my chair of compassion. So dress in white. I want you to be in that mindset. That's the one phase of the day of Rosh Hashanah. This new start, this rebirth, this ability to really discover, renew, refresh who we really are. Make a real change. Leave behind the past and look anew. That's the power, that's the influence of the day, and that Hashem gives to us at every given moment. At every moment of our lives, we have the ability to make change happen. But this is the week. The climax of the whole year is in this week, where we get to really implement it and feel it. But yet, what's the other side? I don't know. I'm dressing in white, but the books of the living and the dead are in front of Hashem. I'm being stripped down naked, literally, in my soul, and everything about me. Not that Hashem doesn't know all year round, but everything. I am, as they call it in the psychological, everyday new age language, I'm raw and vulnerable on that day. Everything's hanging. I'm dressed in white. I'm anticipating a good verdict. But on the other hand, boy, am I scared. Everything is hanging by a rope. And that paradox is something that we have to understand. We live with all year round, but it comes a climax. That climax is on Rosh Hashanah, where Hashem says, every day, I want you to live life with emunah and bitachon and trust in me. Everything I do is for the very best. But yet you live in the paradox paradox of life. But things seem to be so chaotic. Things seem to be so disorganized. Things seem to be running its way without any supervision, without any compassion, without any love. So Hashem says, I want you to look at this day. I want you to look at your life and recognize that you should live out your life on two planes. There's life before death, and there's life after death. And each one is obviously connected to the other. I want you to live your life as though this is the only life that you have. When you're here, there's all these paradoxes that we live with, and we don't even take the time to really think about it, right? We live our life in this world, and yet everything that we do is, we're told, don't do for the sake of this world. Do it for the sake of the world to come. But wait a minute, but there's life here. So where should I put my priorities? So life is about putting everything in a balance. It's about investing everything that I can, using that light, using that power, using that influence, making a change in my destiny here in this world right now, but knowing that I'm investing all of that for the purpose of life, so to speak, after death, because there's also life there. There's a reason why a cemetery is called in the Hebrew language Bet HaChaim, the house of the living. It's very odd. Nowhere that I know of in any other culture is a cemetery called the house of the living. It's always called a cemetery, a place where people are dead. They're not alive. And yet we're supposed to have this connection to that place, knowing that no one really is dead, right? It, in fact, we're one of the very few, if maybe, I don't know, Sarah Esther, maybe you know better than me, maybe one of the only cultures and religions where we actually do a hilulah. We have a celebration on the day of the righteous rabbi's death. We celebrate because, again, going a little bit into what we're going to learn in our last class about our legacy, what legacy, but we celebrate the life that we want to emulate. That's a cause of celebration. So we see that even though there's this going away from the life as we know it in this world, there's that influence, there's that power that joins within us, the living in this world, the life before death. There's the life before death as this world. Then there's a life after death, which is the next world, but they're both living. We're both still alive. And that's the paradox that we live in, that we can live in two different places at the same time. And it reminds me of another paradox that I remember is very profound, that the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh teaches us. And he says, what does it mean to live a life of hishtadlut, of concerted effort? On one hand, you're told, go to work. On the other hand, you're told, don't believe in the work and the extra hours that you're putting in your, in your job, because you're going to bring home the same salary anyway. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, oh yeah, well, this month we're going to have another, $5,000 in the bank account because I worked another, I don't know how many other hours. I did another sale. That's not the case. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says, you know how you have to live your life? You get up in the morning, do your netilah, your negovasser, you daven, sit on your couch, cup of coffee, hot cocoa, whatever, suits your toodle, right? And you go ahead and you sit down on the couch and you say, I got to get to work. If I don't go to work, I won't be making my, my money for the day. I got to make sure that I got to go to work. And you get up, you go to work, you come back, hopefully 5, 6 o'clock, you're sitting back down on the couch. If you didn't have meat, you sit down with your second cup of coffee or 10th cup of coffee, whatever, again, suits you. And you say, you know what? I could have sat on my couch all day long, not gotten up to work, and I would have still brought the same amount of money in the bank. Wait a minute. Baal Shem Tov says, that's the reality every Jew lives in. We live in this paradox reality. On one hand, if I don't get to work, I won't make money. On the other hand, I don't believe in the work that I'm doing because I'd make the money anyway. Well, wait a minute. What is it? The life of a Jew is a paradox. It doesn't make sense. but yet we're told that we need to put in our exerted effort. We need to put in our hishtadlut. And that's the paradox. That's why our minds can't grasp so much of this. And so to take it to the Rosh Hashanah, that's what we're going to be in. We should anticipate being in a moment for those 20, not 25, it's actually 50 hours, the 2 days, right? We need to anticipate sitting there for those 2 days coming up, this coming, Shabbos and then Motzei Shabbos, right? The 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, that we're going to feel ourselves a bit uncomfortable. Wait a minute. I don't want to profess too much emunah and too much bitachon that Hashem's going to quit me of all of my wrongdoings. But on the other hand, Hashem says, look, it's a mitzvah, dress in white, wear your best jewelry, look your most gorgeous, attire. Anticipate that you will win me over, so to speak. Part of that has to do with what we're doing right now. What am I doing right now before that paradoxical 2 days? What am I doing to lead me up? Now, I can't trust that everything that I'm doing is 100% everything I had to do, but at least if I come prepared, then I can live in that paradox for those 50 hours with a little bit more ease. I could say, you know what? I prepared myself. I've tried. I've put in the effort. And it's written in Rosh Hashanah, in the Gemara, that depicts the idea of how we should behave in Rosh Hashanah. And it says that there are 4 things that a person can do that can affect changing the decrees, right? And a lot of these, we know, we've heard this before, but I want to just bring it up, again to our consciousness. There are 4 things that a person can do that could tear up their decrees for Rosh Hashanah, right? 1, tzedakah. 2, tzedakah, screaming out, right? The first one is charity, give charity. Number 2, scream out, yell out, pray, use this opportunity to yell out and beg Hashem. Number 3, change your name. A person, okay, I'm not telling everyone to go ahead and change your name per se. Changing your name means changing your essence. The name Shem, well, Shem in Hebrew is name. Neshama has in it Nun, Shin Mem, and then Hey. So in the word Neshama, your soul, embedded in that has the word Shem, your name. Your name means changing your spiritual essence. That's what it's referred to. Although some people take it literally and some say it is literally. When a person's mazel, so to speak, is stopped, they should think about going to a Rav, possibly, didn't say for everyone, and change their name, add their name, look at their name, refine their name, I don't know, celebrate their name, something with their name. But here what we're referring to is changing one's neshama per se, changing the spiritual destiny lines in which we are traveling on. And the 4th thing is to change one's action. Do something about it. Be proactive. As there's another 5th aspect that some say, even changing one's place, right? Meshanem makom, meshanem mazal. When you change your place, when you change the place of where you're living right now, you could possibly also change the decree. In other words, if you change your home, if you change the place where you're living, you can essentially possibly also change the decrees that are hovering, so to speak, over you. So, again, that's just the 5th point that some rabbis say is also important. But the idea is be active, be proactive, yearn to change, look forward, be inspired to make a change. Set your pace already now. What direction do I want to go? Right? Where do I want to go in the upcoming year? Do we even ask ourselves, what do I want from the new year? It's very, very important to ask yourself, what do I want? A person's ratzon is where a person is ratz. It's where a person runs. The word ratzon has in the word, embedded in the word ratz, to run after. What am I running after in my life? Where's my energy being invested into, right? That's the first thing I should be asking myself. What do I want? But the most important thing that we should be doing right now is not staying in place. The worst thing we could be doing right now is just sitting down and saying, Rosh Hashanah is coming up. It'll be what it'll be. Where's your proactiveness? Where's your ambition? Where is your direction? Where's your initiative? Where's your influence? Where's the power that Hashem gave you to be able to actually make a difference? Did we sit down with ourselves over the last 3 weeks? And are we going to sit down with ourselves over the next less than a week and ask myself, what is my achat sha'alti? As we're reading in Perek Kaf Zayin 27, and we're reminded of the one verse that David HaMelech professes very, very clearly with a lot of confidence. One thing I ask, if I had a genie bottle right now, and I could rub that side of that genie bottle, what is the one request that I would ask? And David HaMelech makes it very clear. He says, I know very clearly what I want for myself. I want to be close to you, Hashem. That's what's good for me. That's what I define as being good. Nothing else is good. One thing. Did we ask ourselves over the last 3 weeks, will we ask ourselves? Because that is the influence and the power that we each have. We have the ability to come to Hashem and say, I know what I want. What is it that you want? And that one request that you have, that desire that you have, has an effect on the entire world. It can affect you and your spouse, your children, your family, your parents, your neighbors, the Jews in Hawaii, and the non-Jews in New York City. That one thing that you ask, you have that light. Your light radiates out to the entire world. You are a microcosm of the entire universe. Inside of each and every one of you, there is the energy of the dog, of the snake, of the flower, of the wellspring of water, of the grass, of the trees, of the cars, like everything. Everything in this world is in you. When you make a change, you can essentially change the entire world. And I have to say this story, because this is the story that I repeat of the Baal Shem Tov. I repeat it throughout the year, but it has to do with Yom Kippur. And I know we have one more class, but I have to repeat the story. This is one of the most magnificent stories that I have ever heard in my life. And I hope and pray that this will give you what it gives to me every time I repeat the story. And it will give it to you not just now, but you'll remember this for the rest of your life till 120. It was a time when the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh stood in front of his congregation before Yom Kippur. And as was known and was very, very common, the Baal Shem Tov would act sometimes in ways that would bewilder his disciples and bewilder the people around him. He would do things, he would let out a laugh, or he would suddenly go into a trance. His eyes would turn red. He would suddenly stare. He would suddenly fall apart. And everyone was left dumbfounded. And so here it was, standing up in front of the bima before Yom Kippur, one Yom Kippur, and he begins to laugh. A huge belly laugh. And everyone's, of course, looking at him. And nobody ever really dared to ask him, certainly not at that moment. They knew that there would come a time where the Baal Shem Tov would feel comfortable enough to essentially reveal what it was, this unusual behavior, so to speak, of his was. And so Yom Kippur passed. And of course, on Motzei Yom Kippur, everyone gathered around the Baal Shem Tov, and of course, he would always reveal before they would even ask, I guess you're all wondering, what is it that I was laughing about before I stood up, to start davening, Yizkor and Yom Kippur. And he says the following story. Now, you have to understand that the Baal Shem Tov would wear garments, and he would change his garments of consciousness as we would go ahead literally and change from weekday clothes to pajamas. He was just able to literally strip his suit, strip his consciousness, and be in somewhere else. Shemaim, Aretz, no difference. It's like me going to one room to the other room. That's how he was able to literally live with different suits of consciousness. And so it happens that at this moment, when he let out this giggle, he saw all the way, villages far, far, far away. He entered into a place where he saw a farmer sitting. As he was entering into Yom Kippur, he sees the vision of this farmer sitting down in front of his table, ready to accept upon himself the fast. And in front of him, there are two empty shot cups and a nice bottle of vodka. Okay? And this farmer is sitting here having his one-on-one conversation with Hashem, very informal conversation with Hashem. And it goes like this. And the Baal Shem Tov is witnessing this whole beautiful conversation while his body is right in front of the congregation. His mind is villages far, far distances away. And the farmer has these two cups, empty cups in front of him, and he goes like this. He says, Hashem, it's been a long year. It's been a tough year. And I must admit, I have my complaints against you. You know, my cows died. My wife is not so I. My parnasa, you know, it needs some work. It's really been a tough year for me, Hashem. But I'll tell you what, if we're going to be honest, Hashem, I've got some things to tell you too. You know, I don't know how much I deserved anything better. My davening hasn't been so I. And I guess I didn't say brachas all the time when I was supposed to. And you know what? I should have been more respectful to my wife. And I guess the cows, yeah, maybe I should have been more appreciative of them. So we're going into Yom Kippur, Hashem, literally in these words, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing, don't take me literally, but you get the idea. You know what, Hashem? We're going into Yom Kippur. It's the day of Rachamim. We finished the Deen. We're going into Rachamim now, right? So what do you say? Let bygones be bygones. Okay, I'll forgive you and you'll forgive me. And let's just go into Yom Kippur as peace, in peace. Let's just not have any arguments towards one another. What do you say? He takes the bottle of vodka, pours one shot glass, goes and pours the other shot glass, lifts them both up as if to say, here's mine, here's yours, Hashem, L'chaim! And he gulps both of them down, and that's the way he goes into Yom Kippur. That's the end of the story. The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh says, there was a harsh decree on the village, and it's in the merit of this farmer who did the most simplest act of just yearning and wanting to be at peace with his creator that overturned the harsh decree and nullified it and broke the decree over the community. Simple act, the simplicity of a Jew who got to the conclusion that he hasn't been okay and that his emotions towards Hashem, he was able to even justify some of them. That is the power of a Jew. That is the effect and the influence that you and I have. I want us to remember before we go into a meditation that you don't have to be a Talmid Chacham. You don't have to be a Torah scholar. You don't need to head a worldwide organization. You don't need to be cooking for every neighbor in town to be worthy of God's love. You don't need to be doing anything extravagant that has to be posted in the New York Times. You need to just be you. You need to be loving yourself. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to be true with yourself. You need to appreciate the goodness that you are bringing into this world. You need to appreciate the emunah that you're fighting for every given moment of your breathing life. You need to appreciate your journey, where you were, where you are, and where you still have yet to be. And with that, you'll understand that the whole world is in your hand. The whole world are in your hands. And you do have that effect. And you do have that influence. As the story so beautifully, I'm really getting choked up, but as the story so beautifully depicts what it means to be a Jew, what it means to just want to be good. That is all that Hashem really wants from us right now. I'll tell you the truth, ladies, there's very little that you and I could do right now. There's very little that we could do to change the course of the virus, what it means to live in an uncertain world. There's very little that you and I could do to change the way our kids live their lives, the amount of money we have in the bank. But there's a lot that we could do with just being honest with ourselves and just asking Hashem to bring the Geula, to bring the Geula in ourselves, to bring the Geula in the world. That is where our influence lies. What do you want? What's that one thing? What is your Ahad Sha'alti? What's the one thing you want? Ask yourself. If you haven't asked yourself until now, ask it a few times over the next couple of days. Find out, because as we're going to see in this meditation, God willing, there's something that you were brought into this world to do. There's a profound effect and impact that you have that maybe you're not even aware of. You know, people think, oh, you know what you're here to do. You're a teacher at the Daily Dose of Emunah. You do this, you do that. You know what? I still don't know why I'm here in this world. I still don't know exactly why I'm here. I could think that it's because I'm here to do the Daily Dose of Emunah and bring Emunah to the world. Maybe I'm completely off. Maybe it has nothing to do with why I'm here in this world. I have to never take for granted that I got it. I know why I'm here. I don't know. And maybe that purpose is going to change. So every day is a day of new discovery. And every day I need to ask myself, why am I here? And I need to yearn to fulfill that purpose, as we all do. So don't think you've got it down pat. You have to keep asking because it changes, and that's okay. So let's take a moment and see if we can go into this meditation. I'm sorry I went overboard, but I want to do this meditation, which I think is very, very powerful for all of us. And hopefully it'll give us some tool. And I do believe that this meditation should be practiced a few times over the next couple of days. Okay, so let's go ahead and find a nice quiet place. And let's see if we can create a quiet space. I hope the music is not too overpowering. But this is a meditation that hopefully will bring us to a place where we'll be able to see for ourselves, a little bit attune ourselves to why we are here in this world. Where is our influence? Where is our power? So just close your eyes and relax as we begin every meditation. Just gently close our eyes. We soften our bodies, soften our breath. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, and just follow where I'm going to be taking you, where you want to go. I'm going to take you to visualize a brief walk through your life. I'm going to take you back for just a moment to whatever early memory you have in your childhood. Just see yourself, that young girl, for those boys listening, young boy. Just see yourself as a young child and see the various different experiences that you might have gone through. Some bring up good memories. Some are difficult to remember. That's okay, because they too have a lesson to tell you and have light to shine. And I want you to ask yourself in this quiet, relaxed, soft place, what have I learned in my life? What did I learn? Focus, expand the light of the wisdom of your experiences. What is it that I have learned in my life that I could share to the world. Focus and expand that wisdom, that gift. Maybe it's a trait that you've refined. Maybe it's a void that you felt that you can now fill, or that you have filled in your life towards others. There's something in that lacking, in that void. There's your light. There's your influence. Because from that void, you can grow something new, and that is what you need to share with the world. Now, if you can't recall it, I want you to make it your goal this week to ask Hashem to help you find your unique gift, your lesson of life, your influence, and how you should apply it. And you might be surprised. Don't expect this grandiose answer. Again, maybe the inner answer that you're getting right now is that you've come in this world to learn to love yourself unconditionally more. Maybe you're here to just learn what it means to be happy despite the sadness that you might have experienced or that you witness. Maybe you're here to just learn to appreciate, to live with more amuna. Or maybe it is something grandiose, but you have that answer. And you know who taught you what you're here to do? Your experiences, your life. Your life is your teacher. And it's here to teach you what you're here to continue to bring, to influence and impact. That's your legacy. So take the time, rethink this. Repeat this exercise regularly. Be super focused on why you're here, what you want. What is your achat sha'alti? What is the one thing that you ask? What is your one central power that you have been given by God? Breathe that in. Commit to finding out what the answer to that is, to refine that answer as it changes. And be proud of your presence in this world. Value it. Appreciate it. And when you're ready, open your eyes with a smile, recognizing your grandiose purpose of life. Okay, and with that, I hand it over to you, my love, my Sophia, Sarah Esther.
Dorit Esther, watching you teach us, you're not giving just wisdom and ideas, you're giving something of your soul. And we're taught that a heart speaks to the other heart, sometimes beyond words. You touch us so deeply. You're so beautiful in your authentic emotions. You're not shy. And I emailed this to you in a private message, but you make us all feel so raw and naked. And it's so important because we cannot get to the bottom of who we are to identify our power and influence in our yud and tikkun unless we are really ready and brave enough to strip ourselves of so many layers. So thank you so much for being so brave and such an example of bravery. I'll start with the quote by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. that is so beautiful. I read it a long time ago, cut it out for myself. Who would have known that one day we'll talk about influence over power? That is his quote, the difference between influence and power. Imagine you have total power. Wherever you say goes, then one day you decide to share your power with 9 others. You now have, at best, 1/10 of power you had before. Now imagine that you have a certain message of influence. Then you decide to share that influence with 9 others, whom you make your partners. You now have 10 times the influence you had before. Because instead of just you there delivering the message and being there threatening and giving power, you give people an ability to offer influence. Power works by division, influence by multiplication. Power, in other words, is a zero-sum game. The more you share, the less you have. Influence is a non-zero game. The more you share, the more you have. How wonderful is it? I think that these words are so profoundly powerful because unfortunately in life we often use the words influence and power interchangeably. We think someone that has power has influence, and someone who has influence, oh, they must have power. But really, in reality, there's a huge difference. The best example, the best the speech of the rabbi or any religious leader, it's also a beautiful allegory. The best speech of any religious leader is example of their own life. Because while you study math, you will never become a circle. Once you study chemistry, you'll never become a molecule, and so forth. But once you study Judaism and you study authentic Jewish wisdom, you will become an influential person to yourself, to your immediate circle of friends, and to the world. So it is very important to understand that wanting to control and seeking power is a huge difference between dreaming about having influence. It's a huge difference between these two concepts. Now, considering that we just dealt with the anniversary of 9/11, I want to honor that day by sharing a story that I read from a gentleman whose life was saved because he did not finish a school project the night before with his child, and his wife asked him to stay a little bit later and finish that project, and he went to work a few hours later, or maybe a few minutes later. The article is called Small Whispers. That gentleman, after his life has been spared, said that he did end up being in that building, but of course, because of not being where he was supposed to, he survived. He said, everything is the same on my outside, but everything is different on my inside. I became a completely different person. So he became a motivational speaker. And he shares a story, and I think it's important that we hear it from him. That's why I said who he is, because if someone says to you, vanity of vanities, right, is all vanity, and that person is a homeless person, not to undermine his influence in the world. But then when King Solomon says that, right, what place is this coming from? Someone that has everything and has seen it all, and he still says that, or someone that is maybe having a different day? So this person has been given a second chance at life, and he is teaching everyone to listen to the whispers of life as a subtle message of where we're needed, on what our influence can be. And he gives a beautiful allegory in his article that was published by Aish this week. He says that a young successful person was driving in a very fancy car, and suddenly he sees a kid throwing a brick at his Ferrari. Now this gentleman stops and he screams, what are you doing? You're destroying my car. And the child says, I'm sorry, I didn't know what else to do. I threw the brick because no one else would stop. My brother is in a wheelchair. He rolled over the curb and fallen out, and I can't lift him up. So I had to do something so drastic as to throw a rock onto your car so you would stop and help me pick up my brother. So he says the advice, don't go through life so fast that someone has to throw a brick at you to get your attention. Everyone has a choice, and you can listen to the whispers of life in a subtle message. And this way, you are able to understand, as Orit Esther guided us, where your influence is, when you're running and zooming through life without stopping, without acknowledging and recognizing the situation. The best you could do is have power for the few minutes of those around you, because maybe you're in a position of authority at work or at home, your children. That's not influence. Power is short-lived. Influence is long-lasting. People influence us even after they're gone. Think about, the leaders of Jewish people. They've been going for millenniums, and we still are influenced by their examples. They don't have power over us. They have influence. How beautiful is that? And Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs writes that he has a dream. It's a beautiful paragraph. That he goes through the library, enormous library with millions of books. And now, as he's wandering through the titles, then he suddenly stops dead, like all of us. And we see a title with our name on one of the books amongst millions and millions of books. Now, there's not many people that would just put it down, keep walking. Of course, you take it out, you open it, and you see that there are several hundred pages of that book written by many different handwritings in different languages. You try to work out, what does this book mean? And you realize that this book was written by your ancestors. Every single one of them has written a chapter of the book, telling their story and handing it on to their children. And you get to the end of the book with a shock. You see, you guessed it, an empty page. You know why? Because it's your turn to write a chapter for your children. I get very emotional. And then no one is there in their right mind will just throw the book back to the shelf and say, oh, forget it. You realize it's a personal journey. This book is not just another book. This is your story, a collection of all those that lived before us. You have responsibility to your ancestors. You have a responsibility to the next generation to create a life of influence where you can write your own story in this book that has been written by thousands of people before you. That is influence. When you realize that long after you're gone, there will be a library with a book that has a chapter that was written by you, and there will be another person on this planet that will find it and recognize that their name is on the cover, because it will be now their turn. That way, we are not worried about a short-lived commands that we give out to people in our lives. We're focused from a different perspective, a bird's eye view. Baal Shem Tov, who's Orit Esther and my personal guide in life, I find myself thinking about his life and how many lessons he's taught. Joy is a legacy. It influences people. Living your life with joy is probably be the number one lesson that Baal Shem Tov left with us. There's nothing bigger than a life that is full of joy, happiness, authentic gratitude, and inner tranquility and peace. That influences people. You don't even have to talk and preach and give examples of what people should be or doing or not doing. You could just go through life dancing. People look at you and they find this to be so attractive and so mind-blowing in today's world that they stop and they will recognize and perhaps even come to you for advice. And maybe you have already tried that and you see that it's authentic because it did happen, and it happens to me. People say to me, what is wrong with you? Why are you not worried? Someone has COVID or someone this. And of course, I'm a human being. Sometimes I have bad days, but in general, I'm trying to transcend that barrier, and people notice that. So the best influence you can have is change yourself to be the kind of beacon of light where people look at you and they want to emulate you. They want to emulate not you as a person, but the qualities that you show to the world. Now, there was a person that came to the Lubavitcher Rebbe complaining that he doesn't have good neighbors. You know, no neighbors can be someone that he can look up to or befriend. And the Rebbe said, it's not a problem. So you become that person to your neighbors. You become that light. You become that example. So soon enough, you'll have friends because they'll become like you. It's very important that if there's no leader, you become one, right? Now, It's not an easy journey, but we know that Rabbi Steinsaltz's death was just, I think, about 3-4 weeks prior to today. He was a great mind, and he translated Gemara to, I believe, different languages. And now Chabad is printing a lot of articles about his profound ideas. And I'm in awe of how profound this person was. And his influence continues to infiltrate my world. In Tehillim 34, he writes, we say, taste and see that God is good. Now, what's with taste? Taste cannot be described to other people, right? In order to perceive it, one must taste himself. It's the fundamental point of Jewish experience as we grow. Now, the delight of Torah, the delight of mitzvah, the delight of being that influencer in your life, in the beginning, it may not feel right, like the quote unquote acquired taste. It takes a while for you to appreciate fancy wines, and same maybe goes with the music, with the beautiful things in life. Within a minute, it doesn't work. It takes toil to recognize that there's certain qualities in this world, quality products such, classical music, certain cheeses, a certain taste. You get acquired, and then after a while, you can't go back. You can't go back once you learn to appreciate it. So he compares this personal experience with taste buds as to our personal experiencing of connecting to our unique purpose, and thus becoming that influencer in our world. It takes time, but once you get there and you appreciate this elaborate life full of transcendence and profound wisdom, you cannot go back. It influences you forever, and with that, you influence the world. Now, Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson says, who is powerful? The one who empowers. Who is free? Who can free others? Who is the leader? It is he who creates the leaders. We know that the Lubavitcher Rebbe has been gone for decades, but the influence he's left behind, he was not worried about the fact that, Chabad was left without leaders, because he was making leaders out of his shluchim, out of people that were going into the world. And these shluchim, they don't have a living leader, but the legacy that the Rebbe left behind, for those of you that travel the world and see Chabad in the most randomest countries in the world, and the way they live their life without having anyone standing over them and telling them what to do, because we have our internal compass, and our internal compass gives us an opportunity to find our path and thus be a guiding light to those that perhaps have not reached that point. Now, sometimes in life, we cannot appreciate the situations we're put in, and we might feel like the world is not where it should be, and we feel discouraged. Like the woman who every day was complaining to her husband that the lady did not do her laundry well, because she was looking through the window and realized that the laundry on the clothing line was still kind of gray. And she said, what a terrible housemaker. She doesn't know how to do laundry. And then one day she looked and saw the laundry was done properly. And her husband said, well, it wasn't the laundry, it was our windows. I washed the windows this morning. So, as we look through life, and maybe in our hearts, or unfortunately through Lashon Hara, speaking to others, we criticize the world and we criticize people. Instead of influencing them, we don't have it in our heart to realize, unfortunately, that maybe our windows are not yet purified. So before we go out there and influence our friends and our immediate circle, we have to make sure that we come from the authentic place. So many Gedolim, Tzaddikim, they would sweat after meeting a person that would come and share their weakness, their downfall, their problems. Why would they do that? Because inside of themselves, they try to find a place in their heart where maybe they also have a flaw. Not on that level maybe, but something. They would empathize. So if you want to go and influence people and be an authentic beacon of light, you have to come from the place of love and empathy, not from the place of judgment and critique, even if you already got to where you are. And some people are taking a little longer ride, but they will get there. Hashem is patient with us. Uh, there is a statement that I use when people come up to me and say, "Well, I don't believe in God." They just want to have an argument. They just right away start from the middle. So that's a waste time. And I read this from, again, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs. I didn't even realize how much I'm influenced by him until this class, but he's just a profound thinker. And he said, it's a good thing that while at times Jewish people stop believing in God, the miracle of our people and our eternity is that God has never stopped believing in us. So if anyone ever comes up to us and says, "I don't believe in God," I now say, that's not a problem at all. As long as God does not stop believing in you, we're in a good place. And I think it's hard to argue with that, right? I kind of right away agree with them. Um, our secret is our consistency and our everyday rededication to our faith and our desire to learn from those that lived before us and wrote those enormous amount of beautiful books. In those books, we have a collective story of Jewish destiny, and you have an opportunity and responsibility to the next generation, not only create a spark of power that's short-lived, but to create an influence that will be remembered way after you're gone. I'll finish, as this became our custom, with a beautiful story, and then do a meditation, a quick one. This story happened to me. It's been publicized, so if you've heard it, forgive me, but I don't think I have ever publicly shared it myself. I was born in the Soviet Union, as maybe some of our listeners. You can remember maybe living in America, the Cold War, the Iron Curtain, and all the horrors of practicing for nuclear war in both sides. While we were practicing in Soviet Union, what would happen if America was to attack? You were practicing here. It was almost unlikely that we would ever, find ourselves where these two countries would be able to put weapons inside and have any kind of discussion. But time went by, and in 2008, I put myself, that was previous class, we don't find ourselves, we put ourselves. I put myself on the lawn of the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, where Mikhail Gorbachev was getting a Liberty Recognition Medal for everything he has done for the peace of the two countries, from the former president of the United States, George W. Bush. No, George Bush the father. Here you go. George Bush the father was putting a medal on Mr. Mikhail Gorbachev. Now, you can only imagine the awe of that event for someone that was immersed in that culture. And with much difficulty, I was able to obtain tickets to the lawn seating to watch this occur live. I was sitting there, and this, in case you wanted this story told from a more eloquent perspective by Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. It's in his Hanukkah 8-night, second night story. So he does, every night he does a story. And this one I shared with him personally at his dinner table, just to find myself in his Hanukkah series. But he's done it very well. But I think still, from the first account, I have a right to share it. So as I was sitting on the lawn watching, the presidents of two countries, greet and hug, and Mr. Gorbachev was given a medal, I just started feeling faint. It just filled my heart with enormous amount of hope and overwhelmed me, because I would never think this is possible. I'm a Russian Jew. I've immigrated to the United States, and this is unfolding in front of my eyes, just about 20 feet away. Mr. Gorbachev and Mr. President Bush are standing and hugging. So I went to the ladies' room, and I spent a little time there trying to regain my composure. And when I was coming out, I saw Mr. Gorbachev walking towards me, being guided to the next event of dinner. So as he was walking past me, I stood there like attached to the wall from the shock of this experience. And I told him, "Mr. Gorbachev, my family immigrated to the United States in 1989 because of your decisions and what the legacy you've left behind. May I please have your autograph?" And without a blink of an eye, Mr. Gorbachev replied, looking into my eyes, "Your life is my autograph." And he kept going forward. My dear friends, while this is true about Mr. Gorbachev and my life, it is definitely true about us and our Creator. Our lives are the autographs of our Creator. It is our incredible honor to write that autograph with dignity, influence, and long-lasting memory of positivity and grace. Thank you. I am going to encourage us all to hold our elbows. We're going to work with raising them. So hold our elbows down. As I read Esther, hold. So with your right, it's hard a little bit, but with your right palm, you hold the left, and with the left, you hold the right, right? So you create a little bit like a bind. Now we are going to do a quick meditation about the fact that we are mirror image, as Orit Esther always focuses on, that, you know, the mirror image, what we see in others, right? So we're gonna look down and we're gonna breathe and raise it up, because everything that happens down, we raise up to Shamayim, to our Creator. So this special box is going to be an allegory of the place we are in the world, our actions, our thoughts, our profound emotions. So we are here. So let's just breathe in, holding our elbows, and then we're going to raise it up to Shamayim, and we imagine raising it up to God, creating that place where letting go of control, but we're still holding to the influence we have, right? All we have is our influence, and we're letting go of control. Let's do a few times. Breathe through your nose. Let's do 3 times. Two more. Control, we're letting go. Influence is something we have. And let's do one more. And let go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was so beautiful. Wow, your stories touch my heart, touch our essence. Thank you so much. This has just been really beautiful, and God willing, I'm really looking forward to our last number 8 step, which is, I think, the pinnacle of the whole series. Really, what am I leaving behind? What am I leaving behind in my year? What am I leaving behind in my life? What is my life before death? What is my life after death? God willing, Be'ezrat Hashem, we will go ahead and talk about that on Wednesday. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being our partners in growth. Thank you, Sarah Esther. You just melt my heart with all your beautiful, beautiful Torah insights. And I'm really looking forward to culminating it all on Wednesday. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Don't forget to light your 5 candles. Remember that you're balls of light.